Welcome to Improve Your English Writing video number 73, which is the first part in a two-part series on APA styled source citation. And this video is specifically going to cover writing an APA style in-text source citation, and then citation placement and format. If you'd like to get notifications for this series, please click subscribe. If you like the video or you think others will find it useful, please click like. And check out links to videos and books in the description, like a link to the companion volume here. So, an in-text source citation is a brief parenthetical note in the running text. So you would just have the running text, and then you would have a parentheses, and you'd have the source citation in parentheses. So that's what's meant by a brief parenthetical note, and I will show you many examples. The brief parenthetical note is just enough information to point the reader to the reference list section at the end of the document. The APA calls it the reference list. Like if in the MLA it's called the works cited. In Chicago Manual Style it's also called works cited, but the APA calls it the reference list. So the brief parenthetical note contains just enough information to point you to the reference list. And the APA styled in-text source citation, it provides the author's last name and publication year within parentheses, and that information is separated with a comma. So here's the basic format for an APA styled source in-text source citation. So you have the parentheses, author, comma, year, just like it is here. For example, if Smith published a work in 2018, it would be parentheses, Smith, comma, 2018 in parentheses. That's the basic format. So beyond this basic format, various other citation situations may arise. So the book, Improve Your English Writing, contains 14 of these situations. In this video, I'm going to cover probably the 8 most common situations that arise beyond the basic source citation. So let's get into those 8 situations. So what do you do when you have 2 authors? Well, you just include the second author. So here's the first author, Jones in this example, and you just put and Smith. So you just list the second author, last name of course, and you include the word and. For 3 or more authors, what you do is you include the first author plus the et al. So this is what it would look like if you had 3 or more authors. So it would be Jones, et al., period, comma, and then the year. So that's what you would do for the in-text source citation if you had 3 or more authors. What about different works having authors with the same last name? So let's say you had 2 works by Smith, but they're different people. So what do? So what you do is you include the initial of the author's first name. So I think I have 2 examples here. So let's say you had 2 authors with the last name Jones. To distinguish them, you would actually have you'd include their first initial. So R. Jones. So these examples are R. Jones and E. Jones. So to differentiate between the 2 Joneses, just include the first initial. What about a work with an unknown author? Well, what you do is you substitute the work title for the author's name. If the work title is long, and I'm going to say that's probably 4 or more words, use an abbreviation, because this is how you form an abbreviation. So you want to use 3 or fewer words is best when you do an abbreviation. That's why I call 4 or more words probably considered long. Because if you think about it, you want the parenthetical comment to be brief. So if you have like an 8-word title, that's just too long. So you want to focus on just the minimal amount of words. So 3 or fewer words is best. And just for a point of clarification, is the abbreviation's first word must also be the same word used to alphabetize the work in the reference lists. So you can't have it start with 1 word, the abbreviation start with 1 word, and then alphabetize it under a different word. So whatever you choose or whatever you have as the first word for abbreviation, that's what someone's going to go look down alphabetically in the reference list. And you want to italicize a book title or website name. And you enclose the title of a journal or website article in quotation marks. So for example, if you had an unknown author and it was a book, it's called Strengthening Youth, and you'd just write this Strengthening Youth as italics because it's a book, comma, the year. If you had a journal article, if you had a journal article, you would enclose it in quotation marks like the top 10 sonnets, comma, inside the closing quotation marks, comma, and then the publication year. So that's how you would handle a work with an unknown author. What about multiple works from the same author? How do you distinguish that? Well, you use a lowercase letter after the year to distinguish works published to distinguish works published in the same year. So if you had the same author, let's say Smith published 2 things in 2019, then the first published work would be 2019A, and the next work would be 2019B. And just so you know, the reference list will arrange the entries chronologically. So this 19A has to be published before the 2019B. And for reference entries with the same date, then you alphabetize the work. So if you happen to have, let's say it's, person has 2 published books in the same year, and you only ever use a year for a published book, then what you would do is then you would alphabetize those works by title. Here's some examples. Jones, 2017A, Jones 2017B. Like I said, this work by Jones, the 2017A, has to be published before Jones published this 2017B work. So what about a work with no publication date? Well, what you do is you use ND, no date. And for example, Jones, ND. That's how you'd specify a work with no date. What about citations with multiple references? So what you do is you separate the multiple references with a semicolon. So if you had 3 references, it'd be the first citation, semicolon, the second citation, semicolon, the third citation. I believe my examples. Oh, and you list the citations alphabetically by author. Different style guides allow you some flexibility, but the APA you need to list the references alphabetically by author. So if you had, this is a single parenthetical, this whole thing in parentheses is a source citation, but it's to 2 different sources. So what you need to do is you need to separate the 2. So you have Jones, 2019. You have Smith, 2017. You need to separate them with the semicolon, which is in red here, and then you need to list the authors alphabetically. So Jones and then Smith. What about a citation with a page number reference? So you wanted to include the page number reference in the InText source citation, because remember, APA just is author and year, but you want to include the page number. So what you do is you use P for page, or PP period for pages, followed by the page or the page range. So here's some examples. Smith, 2017, P 110. That means it's Smith 2001. It's the one he published in 2017, and you'd find the source information on page 110. Another example is Smith, 2012, PP 110 to 112. So since this is a page number range, then you would use PP. So what about placement? So those were the 8 different situations. So let's talk about placement and format of the in-text source citation. And the best place to insert the in-text citation is at the end of the sentence and before the period. So here's an example. Anyone can improve their English writing. I just cited myself, Wick, 2021. So this is the APA style. So here it is at the end of the sentence and before the period. But you may put the in-text source citation at the end of a phrase or clause and before any punctuation mark. So let's say you had a compound sentence. You could actually put it right after the first clause, just like this example. The medication causes dizziness. Then the in-text source citation would come at 2021. But the side effects seem to go away after several days. You would probably use this situation because this information that the medication causing dizziness, you're actually sourcing it to this source right here. And this information is not being sourced to anything. This is the reason you'd write it this way. But you do have the flexibility of putting the in-text source citation after a clause or a phrase. What about a direct quotation? Well, you place the in-text source citation after the closing quotation mark and before the period. So also, if you want further examples or information, go see videos 66 and 67. But here's an example. The introduction read, "Beware of bad punctuation, close quote, source citation, period." So that's how you'd format that. So in-text source citations can be written as either in a narrative or a parenthetical format. Now, everything you've seen in the videos up until this point have actually been parenthetical formatted in-text source citations. But let's cover a narrative formatted source citation. So that is where the author's last name is in the running text, and then you place the publication year in parentheses. So if you think about it, I'm just going to show the example. Clark showed in avoiding the number 13 that many educated adults cling to forms of folk magic, 2013. If you think about it, the basic format would be, Clark, 2013. But it seems sort of redundant to put Clark here because you're just saying Clark, the author, said this or showed this, and then you're showing what the year, the publication year of that. So since just putting Clark in here would be redundant, you don't need to put it. So this is called a narrative formatted citation. So it's the author is in the author's last name is in the running text, and then you put the publication year in parentheses. And then the parenthetical formatted, where you place both the author's name and the publication year in parentheses, which is basically what I've been showing for basically all my slides on in-text source citations. So this should look very familiar. And you'd probably, or the sentence may be written this way: educated adults often cling to various forms of folk magic, like avoiding the number 13. Then you're sourcing it to Clark, 2013. So here you put the author and the publication year because the author is not contained in the running text. So that's it for this video. If you want to get notifications for this series, please click subscribe. If you like the video, please hit like. Check out links to books and videos in the description.